So good morning, everybody. I'm Phyllis, and I'm the facilitator for today's topic. I know that most of us know the guidelines by which we run our meetings. So just to remind you, you raise one finger to get on the list, and I'll write your name on the list and then call the list in order. If somebody has said something, you didn't understand a word, a term, you're not sure you heard something, you can ask them to clarify that. The clarifying question is only to be used for things that you missed or didn't understand. It's not to make a point. Before you raise two fingers to ask a clarifying question, check with yourself and say, do I really just want to make a point? And then get on the list. If a question asked is not a clarifying question, we'll let you know and we'll ask you to get on the list. Everybody on the list gets 2 minutes to speak, and I'll try to keep the timer. And then at the end, close to the end, depending on how many people we end up with, we'll start the wrap up. Anybody who has not got on the list and spoken will get 2 minutes for their wrap up. Everyone else will get 1 minute. And at the beginning and the end, I will do some comments. We ask that you keep yourself on mute unless you are speaking. At this time, I will have everybody go around and introduce themselves, and I will call your name. And then after you introduce yourself, if you're not muted, you can re-mute. So first we'll go with Lynn.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Frank, speaking to you from New Orleans, Louisiana. I've been a member since the summer of 2019. Glad to be here and glad to see all of you.
Good to see you. Stanton.
Good morning, Stanton Korn from Austin, Texas. Been coming for about 3 months now, I guess.
Great. Larry.
Good morning, I am Larry, and today I am performing the wedding ceremony for my youngest grandson.
Oh.
So I'll be cutting it a little bit short today, so I'm glad to be with you.
Thank you. Dee Dee, perfect timing. Would you like to introduce yourself? That was really well timed. It's like,
I'm good at that.
Sat down.
Anyway, I'm Dee Dee. I'm in California. It's gonna be 120 today. No, it's not gonna be that bad. But we've been up in the hundreds the past few days. It's dropping down to like 97 today. Oh. And so we get a little break. Happy to be here. I read the article. I'm interested in all of our input because there kind of wasn't much in that article that I didn't know already. And so I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Dee Dee. Michelle.
Good morning. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
You're a little distant.
Okay. Yeah, because this microphone, I really have to be up against it for you able to hear me. I'm Michelle, and I am also in Austin, Texas, and it has been really hot here, so I can commiserate with Dee Dee. We've been having over 100 for weeks.
Ooh.
So, and I also concur with Dee Dee. This article, I pretty much knew everything already in the article, so it'll be interesting to hear what kind of conversations we start here. But thank you, and I've been coming since about August of 2020, so almost 2 years now.
Thank you.
Good to see everybody.
Thank you. Nancy?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name's Nancy. I've been coming to Erace since June of 2007.
Thank you. Lynetta?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lynetta from New Orleans, and I've been a member of Erace since I was doing my internship in undergrad.
Great. Marla?
Good morning. I've been in Erace since since about 2020, I guess, maybe a couple years. And I'm also in Louisiana. I'm in Metairie.
Thank you. Pedro?
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah.
I think thankfully, I joined the same time Michelle did, so I just need to listen to whenever she started, and I can remember when I started. So been about 2 years and really have learned so much. So thank you all.
Thank you. Marion? You were unmuted.
I hit the, okay.
Nope. Okay, stop touching things. There you go. Oh. You're muted again. Okay, you're good. Talk.
Okay, all right. I think, okay, there it is. Good morning, everybody. Marion Lagarde. I'm here in New Orleans in the Gentilly area. I've been attending the race discussion since 1993, and it's good to see everybody this morning. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Great, thank you. Jean?
Okay, I'm Jean. I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I've been attending Erace now for about 8 months or 9 months, I think. And I look forward to the discussion every week. I hope all is doing well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Francie?
You caught me putting my lips balm on. I'm in Austin, Francie Manning, and I've been attending about 1.5 years, I guess now.
Thank you. Beatrice?
Good morning. I'm Beatrice Souble, native New Orleanian, but living here in East Point, Georgia for a while after the levee breaks, and co-founder of Erace Atlanta with my late husband, Larry, and participating in Erace since '93. Glad to be here. Glad to see everyone.
Thank you. Marla? Oh, I'm sorry, not you, Marla. Marba? Can you introduce yourself?
My name is Marvin. I've been attending Erace post Katrina, and I look forward to this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl? You're muted.
Good morning, everyone. Now I can't see myself.
We can't see you either.
Sorry. Morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. Glad to join you and hear what will be said during this discussion. Hard subject, I feel. And I've been coming for the last, I guess, two years pretty regularly. Thank you.
Thank you. And Glenn?
Name is Glenn Abdullah. Been coming to Erace for at least 18 years, and looking forward to today's discussion.
Thank you. I did forget to read the land acknowledgement, so let me do that. I'm gonna have to really get this thing typed up. I want to acknowledge that what we know as the United States is the traditional territory of the indigenous peoples. Members of our group today are on the Tonkawan, Lipan Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Lenape and Piscataway in Maryland, and the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston. Also the Cahuilla Mojave tribes of Riverside County, California. And I want to thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through the generations, and hope that, I knew somebody was in, and hope that we can continue the stewardship in the future. Thank you. So I brought this topic because this is a serious situation our country is in right now with the radicalized Supreme Court running roughshod over our democracy. And this is just the beginning of it all. There are many more vulnerable groups that I believe will be targeted, and including people who don't have any problems with this overthrowing of Roe. I'm hoping that some of the federal laws will be enacted that will protect women and doctors, because abortion is an important part of women's health care. And we now have doctors who are waiting for women to be almost to the point of death before they feel they can safely perform an abortion to save her life. And, you know, with everything in our country, there's no way white supremacy doesn't have its tentacles in it. And that is the same for this alleged pro-life groups that are out there. And they really are focused on making sure that the white population doesn't decline, as every sort of indicator says that it will. I believe that's the main trigger for this. And as in the past, I believe we are at risk of there being forced sterilizations of Black women and other women of color, and maybe even men of color, to make sure that they don't have too many babies. I think this is part of a bigger plan that people are having a hard time seeing. And I'm really concerned for all of the marginalized, vulnerable populations out there that are being targeted by the extreme right-wing Christo-fascists that are trying to take over our country. So having said that, I believe I can open the list now. Anybody? Beatrice and Larry. Go ahead, Beatrice.
Just want to make a quick opening comment that I believe the word for persons who are separating reproductive health care into factions is anti-abortion rather than pro-life. Because pro-life is a not so much correcting you, but just the general idea. Pro-life is a long issue. I mean, I'm talking about health for women as soon as they get pregnant, nutrition, health for babies, health for mothers, schools that are equal. You know, so pro-life is just too great a compliment to people. I think that, like others have said, there's information here that we are familiar with, the mortality rate for mothers. When you look at the figures, it's heartbreaking. And this is, a lot has to do, if you look at where Medicaid was not expanded, it runs the Mason-Dixon line. Georgia was very, very, Governor Kemp, but you know, we're not going to expand Medicaid. They may not give us the federal money after the 3 years, a bunch of crap. That was not the reason. It was just because they wanted to be sure not to do anything that was related to Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. So my main point has to do with anti-abortion. And I'm wondering, these people who stand up with these signs and trouble people who are trying to go in for reproductive health care, even if it is abortion care, if they're going to hold the baby that comes, the baby of the 10-year-old that they were trying to make this child have, are they going to hold the baby with the same vigor that they hold those signs? It's heartbreaking. I think that there's a lot of difference in how people, like Jewish people, believe that life begins at birth. That's a theological thing. So politicians don't need to be deciding when it's a medical issue. It is not an issue for politicians to decide when life begins, the heartbeat. It's very disturbing. I'm trying not to let my passions run away with me. I'm thinking about my darling Glenn. But it is just painful to think of the tragedy that these foolish people on the Supreme Court, and by the way, I know my time is running out. Germany has like 16 people on their Supreme Court. They have term limits. You got 65 years old, get your crazy behind off the court. That's what other countries. India, I think, has 24 people, term limits. We cannot be run by this group of people who now, and Clarence Thomas, I'm finished because I'm going on the deep end.
Should I put you on the list again?
I suppose, yeah, after a while, let some people.
Okay,
I'll
okay.
gather myself.
Okay, so next I have Larry and then Lynn. Anybody else? You can start, Larry. Marla.
Think a lot on
Nancy.
this subject depends on who chooses the narrative and who chooses how this conversation is framed. You know, when we let terms like women's rights or women's health care or woman's right to choose or woman's body, when we let the reproductive rights, when we let those sayings control the narrative, then sometimes it makes it difficult to have a contrary argument. But when we throw a human life into the equation, and that is what those who are so strongly in favor of abortion, that is the conversation they want to keep out of this narrative, that there's a baby in the mother's womb. And when we speak about politicians controlling the narrative, I might do it on my next round, but I have an article in front of me that was written by a medical doctor in the Times-Picayune just a couple of days ago, where he speaks about the baby is formed at conception. That's medical. And when we keep hearing terms like marginalized and inner city and urban and at risk and disadvantaged and poor women, you know, these are deceptive words that I believe that white women are trying to put upon the Black women in order to have them to continue to support the killing of a baby. But this is not who we are. This is not who Black people are. This is not who Black women are. You know, we came up supporting our babies, even during poor times. We had the babies. My mother had 5 children. There were times when she worked 8 hours a day to come home with $4 and $5 a day in her pocket, but she took care of her children.
Would you like to get back on the list?
Yes.
Okay. Lynn, you're next. Guerrero, I see you.
There was a very good interview on NPR the other morning. I heard part of it as I was driving to give my tour. A rabbi, law professor with a Muslim background, and some law professors. And they didn't have any non-Catholic law professors speaking on behalf of the Protestants. But the concept that life begins at fertilization is strictly a theological concept. And that medical doctor who wrote to the Times-Picayune 2 days ago is a Catholic, obviously. He doesn't have the authority as a doctor to say that life begins at conception. He has accepted the teaching of the Catholic Church, and he is couching it in the colors of medical practice. I was very interested to learn that people of the Muslim persuasion have 2 choices. Some of them do believe that life begins at fertilization, and others believe that the soul goes into the fetus at a later date, and that could be at birth or after or shortly before birth or halfway through. But that is a choice. That is a religious choice that each person makes, according to this law professor. And I think it's no accident that all of our Supreme Court justices on the conservative side are either Catholic or were educated in Catholic high schools and universities. And it's very, very unfair to impose their religion on other people. Now they have a persuasive argument. When you think of little babies, nobody wants to hurt little babies. But to say that life begins at conception is simply a theological construct.
Thank you, Lynn. Is this a clarifying question for real, Larry?
Looks like it.
Yeah, well, he hasn't asked it yet, so we don't know. So did you not understand something she said, or do you want to make a point? You're muted. You're muted.
No, I'll wait till I get back on the list because I know you're going to cut me off.
Well, if it's not a clarifying question, I'm cutting
Just put me
anybody
back
off.
on the list, please.
You are now. Marla, you're next. Then I've got Nancy, Larry. Oh, you already were on, and then Greer.
Okay.
So
I had
Mar-
my hand raised up electronically.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were Greer up there again. Glenn, got you. Thank you.
You got Beatrice?
Nope, but I do now. Thank you.
Sure.
Am I still on the list?
Yes. It's Marla, Nancy, Larry, Greer, Glenn, and B.
And Jean.
And Jean. If you hold your hand up while I'm writing the name before you, I'm not going to see you. You have to give me a minute. I got you, Jean. Okay, Marla.
Okay. I guess first I just want to address what Larry said about white women creating the terms marginalized or using, I don't know if it was using or creating, but I'm curious to hear more about that because I'm not aware that that was created by white women. And then the second thing that I wanted to just talk about in general is the notion in all of this that having a baby is like no big deal. It's a huge deal. It's a big deal for a birthing person's body. And I will just say, as a white woman with a fair amount of privilege, you know, not to mention that I was a nurse when I was pregnant, I did have the attitude of, oh, it'll be no big deal. I'll have this baby and it'll be okay. And I was on bed rest for several months. I had very dangerously high blood pressure, preeclampsia. Labor was induced on a Friday evening. It was a horrific labor. I did not have my daughter until Sunday night at almost midnight via emergency C-section. I ran a high fever. And I'll also throw into the mix just to give another picture. I mean, I'm thinking about me versus, say, a Black woman who, you know, does not have the support that I had or the knowledge even that I had maybe to advocate for myself. My ex-husband was also a physician at the time, and he called in my doctor because the nurse tried to hang an antibiotic that I was profoundly allergic to. So all of these things transpired, and that was with me, a white woman of privilege with support, with, you know, financial means, and some basic, I mean, more than a basic understanding of how to navigate healthcare because I too am a nurse. So having a baby is a big deal in every respect. It's a big deal for your body. It's a big deal for the care that you need. It's a big deal afterward. I mean, immediately after, the recovery that I had was lengthy, psychologically, physically, and everything else. Physically, I was not able to hold my baby until the day that I left the hospital and like actually change her diaper because I could not move from the bed. So I just wanted to put that out there when thinking about forced birth, what that looks like for folks.
Thank you, Marla. For the non-medical people, will you give a brief explanation of what preeclampsia is? Because not everybody's.
Yeah, so high blood pressure, you know, that's spiraling out of control, that can be very dangerous to a mom. Both, you know, really what resolves preeclampsia is the birth itself. But I also had complications with delivery, you know, with a fever and being sick in that regard. So the preeclampsia resolved, but the other stuff didn't, and it took longer for that resolution. So very, very high blood pressure that can cause a mom to suddenly miscarry, for example. You can have profound swelling. You can eventually, go into heart failure as well. So.
Thank you. Francie, you have a question?
I do for Marla. How did all your health condition affect the baby? Was there an effect for her?
I mean, she did not cry when she first was born, which was, of course, very concerning to me, despite being fairly out of it with the labor and so forth and the C-section stuff. But she wound up, really coming around beautifully. I mean, she was 8 pounds and so has had no issues since. So very thankful for that. She did have a big hematoma, big bruise on her forehead from where they tried to use the vacuum initially to get her out. She did not want to come out. So
Glad she's out.
me too. She's 18 and I'm sending her to college next month. So she's doing great.
Okay, next is Nancy.
Okay, I just want to say that I am obviously a Black woman and I am pro-choice. Okay, I believe in a woman's right to choose. It is my body, it is my life, it is my choice. I also believe there is supposedly this country was founded on separation of church and state, which has never been the case. Never been the case. Okay, there are politicians and the government have, if you can argue, I have a lot to say, I probably have to get back on this, but if you can stand there and argue against wearing a mask under the premise of it is my body and it is my choice, you have no right to tell me that I have to carry a child to term under without exception for rape or incest. That is sick. That is just plain sick and disgusting. Okay, I don't think any God or religion would sanction that. That is evil male thinking who have no idea, as Marla described, of what it takes to bring a child to term. I had high blood pressure teetering on preeclampsia. You can have a stroke being pregnant. Pregnancy is dangerous. And to tell someone that in my health is concerned that I can't take care of myself is immoral and sick. And I'll get back on the list because I got a lot more to say about that.
Okay.
And I got some more.
I'll
to say.
put you back on the list. That was time. Okay, I see you, Stanton, and Larry, you're next.
I think when we dismiss life, I think that is what is immoral. When the sperm is united with the egg, a child is conceived and life begins. Now, if life begins, that means something is growing. Something can't grow without life. And so, yes, life has to begin at conception. And we want to make this thing into a religious thing. This is not about religion. That makes for a good argument. I don't argue my cause because I'm a Christian. I argue my cause because I'm a human being. And because I'm a human being, I have respect for life in the womb. Now, when we get down to a 10-year-old child that was raped and having abortion, that's a different discussion. A woman that may have been raped or incest, that's a different discussion that a woman, yes, would have to make that decision if her health is at stake, the health of the baby is at stake. Yes, all of that should be taken into consideration. But I think there has to be an admission that that is in the womb is a child. It's a baby. You know, if a prostitute wants to walk the street, that's her body, that's her choice. If she wants to do that, society then shouldn't have to tell her she can't do it. But there are risks. Sex has consequences, and the consequence is a baby. Now, all of the other issues that can be dealt with on moral grounds or some other kind of grounds. If the baby is deformed and have a little chance of a quality of life, and the mother wants to make that decision, I would not condemn that mother. No, of course not. I would not condemn that 10-year-old child or her mother. Of course not. Those are situations, but the overall purpose of life is procreation. And if we kill every baby in the mother's womb, then what happens to the human race? That's all for now.
Next I have Greer.
Wow, everybody is just putting it out there. I'm gonna say this. I'm pro-life, but I'm pro-choice also, because there are always going to be extenuating circumstances. Just because I like something, that doesn't mean everybody else should like it. But my thing is, with it being built on the backs of, this really isn't about Black women. This is about an issue between white men and white women, and how the death rate has exceeded the birth rate. Let's keep it real. Nobody's worrying about, we know all the maladies that are affecting the Black community, and there's no movement to correct them. Yet we have all these studies and functions. We also know that Black women are most likely to die in childbirth, but nobody's talking about trying to make that right. See, we want to put this on the Black community, but at the same time, you had, what do you call them, abortion centers strategically placed all over our community. So at the end of the day, this isn't even about us. I mean, people are trying to make it about us, but no, it's not about us. We're caught up in the fight of white men and white women. This had nothing to do with us, but people want to fake like they care. But if they really care, we wouldn't even be having this conversation and using the Black community to push it in this article. Nobody cared about Black lives, whether Black lives survived, how they treated Black people in this country since we were first stolen and taken over here. I mean, I'm just keeping it as real as it can get. This is the one time Black lives don't matter, because if it mattered, we wouldn't have all those abortion centers actually in our community, placed there strategically for the sole purpose of genocide. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Greer. Glenn, you are next.
They need to change the name family planning, because it's not planning no family, it's destroying the family.
Very.
Now, Islam is a religion that that do not push religion on other people. Whatever is, I don't believe in drinking, I don't believe in no drugs, but that's for Muslims to follow. And the same thing with a Muslim woman should follow with what's in our holy book. It says, do not kill your children for fear of poverty. 1400 years ago, this was written. So we follow that. We don't, but I can't impose my religion on anybody else. Now in Islamic countries, they do allow abortions for medical reasons. But no Muslim doctor is going to give a woman an abortion because she went out and had some wild sex, and don't want to and don't want the, don't want that baby. They're not going to kill that baby for that reason. Yeah, your body, all that crap. We don't follow that crap. It's your body. The husband has something to do with that pregnancy. It ain't just your body. You got something that you holding for somebody else. That's my opinion. I hope y'all don't like it.
Thank you. Next, I have B.
Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, a fetus is not a baby. A fetus
You're on the
is
list,
not a
Jean.
baby. You wouldn't call a 3-year-old boy a man. The stages of development in the uterus, certain periods, viability, and all those kinds of things. A fetus is not a baby. And so by using that term, by saying that, it creates an atmosphere where people feel somebody's killing babies. That's a different way. That's a narrative that people think is correct. But if you think about it and in a rational way, you would not call a 3-year-old boy a man. There are different stages of development, and that is true in the uterus. The pregnant person has a life too. The woman has a life, and has a right to make choices about her life. If contraception is not available for whatever reasons, if the person was raped, whatever the reason that this person finds, that the pregnant person finds herself in a situation, she has the right, the agency to determine whether the pregnancy continues. And that's all. A woman has that right. And she may make the decision in conversation with husband, boyfriend, whatever. But ultimately, you are the person that has, I feel, the right to make that decision. Even the Catholic history, St. Augustine, I'm a Roman Catholic. St. Augustine did not determine that ensoulment occurred at inception. So when we are trying to say that life begins at conception, that life begins here, it is a theological judgment. I'll get back. I'll do something later on. I'm finished.
There are 6 people on the list. Do I sound crazy? Do you want me to put you on already, B?
Yes.
Okay.
Am I on the list again?
You are. So I've got Jean, Nancy, Stanton, Larry, Greer, D, and B.
You should have had me before all them.
Glenn now. You just spoke a minute ago. Okay, so Jean.
Another issue that is being overlooked with respect to reproductive health is the fact that in my research, I discovered that doctors in medical school, obstetricians and gynecologists, perform abortions for part of their medical training. And that will no longer be allowed. They're sort of looking at what they're going to do. This helps them with respect to other issues that happen. How do you manage a miscarriage? Not an abortion, a miscarriage, and the woman's health of the baby. In that case, how about a pregnancy that occurs outside the uterus? There are many, many issues that are going to impact the health care of women, whether they're mothers or whether they're pregnant or not pregnant. And this has got far-reaching implications in terms of our reproductive health. And that's just our bodies, period. And it's just mind-boggling to think that we no longer will be getting the kind of treatment that we expect from our gynecologists and obstetricians with respect to our bodies and our health. And I do want to add a little thing that Kavanaugh, Justice Kavanaugh, and one of the other justices lives in Montgomery County. They've asked for, they've asked that the protesters not be allowed to protest in front of their houses. And that was declined because they said that they were within the letter of the law. They only were in there for 20 minutes and then they moved on. And then they came back, but they were within the letter of the law. So no, while they're having their steak dinners, the people outside can carry their bikes and protest them. Anyway.
Thank you. That's good.
I put me back on too.
Okay.
I have another issue.
Okay, Nancy.
My other issue was about healthcare that Black women receive. And when it, Black women, I had a procedure done and it was a white doctor and he told me, oh yeah, you can go back to work the next day. All right. Well, next day came, I couldn't move. All right. And I called back and I said, I can't move. I mean, really, from my waist down, I was nothing. Something is wrong here. Okay. And he just kept telling me, oh, well, just take some Tylenol and like I was annoying.
Tylenol.
Yeah, just take some Tylenol and you'll be fine and whatnot. So finally, I kept calling back. I was persistent. There's something wrong here. And he kept making me seem like I was exaggerating the circumstance because he possibly could not have done anything wrong. And as a matter of fact, this particular experience, I do not go to male gynecologists anymore. Okay, that's sick too. All right. But I finally I kept calling back, and I finally got a female gynecologist. She was his assistant, or his resident, or whatever. And she told me, and it has stuck with me. I hope, don't you ever let anybody tell you what is going on with your body. And I have stuck with that. And I was young when that happened, but it has stuck with me my entire life. So, and even in this instance, I am not going to let someone else tell me how I should do and how I should treat my body. It's my body. No one has to have another thing.
But sorry, your time is up. Do you want to get back on the list?
I'll get back on the list.
Okay. Next is Stanton.
Yeah, I see this as an issue of control, and it's a way of controlling people by making them basically illegal. So if you can't have sex that doesn't produce a child, then if you have a child, you're illegal if you have an abortion. If you have sex for the purpose other than procreation, you could be considered possibly at some point in time illegal. I know that as a gay man, 50 years ago, I was mentally ill and illegal. So this is a way of controlling certain types of people. It's a way of men controlling women. And it boils down to, if you personally believe that the only purpose of sex is for procreation, good for you, but don't force those opinions on other people. And if someone has sex and they make a mistake and they didn't have protected sex, it doesn't mean they should die if you got AIDS. It doesn't mean that you should have a baby if you got pregnant. It doesn't mean that you have to live your life the way other people want you to live. And again, the notion that a fertilized egg is a baby, to me, is personally absurd, because that is, as Beatrice said, a stage of development that is in its early stages. Now, if you're talking about ripping out whole babies at the end of a 9-month pregnancy, yeah, maybe develop some laws around doing stuff like that. But that's not what's happening to women. They're having their abortions in the first term, generally speaking. The law was set up for these trimester scenarios, And until you get to that trimester where the life of the mother is in peril, well, then yes, it's a difficult decision for all concerned. I am certain of that. But don't tell a woman who's less than 3 months pregnant that she cannot have an abortion because you believe it's life, when it clearly, for those of us who clearly understand it, not to be. So that's where I'm at. And just a quick response to Nancy, just FYI, I have a friend, she's white. She went to a white female gynecologist. The woman messed her up big time during surgery for a minor hysterectomy, and she's now suing her because she wasn't paying any attention to that woman. So I think there are anecdotal stories all over about doctors. We all think that basically the medical community sucks, I think. So that's a whole other story.
Thank you, Stanton. Larry, you're next.
Actually, Stanton, you and Beatrice made my case, because, you know, if at 3 months or whatever, it's a fetus, it's still in a stage of development. And if it's in a stage of development, what is it developing into? It's developing into becoming a full-grown birth human being. So yes, a fetus is a stage of development. And so you can't just kill it because it's going to develop into a monkey or ape or gorilla or something. It's developing into a human being. And so, you know, a recent article that appeared in the Times-Picayune last week, where they did a study of 2021, the abortions, some 1,000 of them were performed on white women, 4,000 were performed on Black women. Now, if we can't see that as some kind of eugenics, you know, what is? There are people who are vastly opposed to any kind of gun control. Why? Because it is mostly Black people, young Black men, who are out there in the streets getting killed. Okay, thank you.
Oh, that wasn't the time. That was.
Oh, that wasn't the time.
No.
Oh, okay. And you know, we can't demonize the Supreme Court, because remember, after all, it was the Supreme Court that established Roe versus Wade. It was the same Supreme Court that established in 1898, I think, or 1896, that Plessy versus Ferguson was the law of the land. That same Supreme Court turned around in 1954 and reversed it. It was the same Supreme Court that in 1857 declared in Plessy, in the Dred Scott decision, that a Black man had no rights that a white man was bound to respect by law. That same Supreme Court turned around and reversed it. So the Supreme Court established Roe versus Wade. So I don't think we could demonize the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court can't rule by polls what 81% of the people in America think. Supreme Court has to rule by law. They don't always get it right, but nevertheless, they are the final word. Thank you.
Okay, next is Greer.
Okay, I'm gonna say this, and I don't think anybody really thought about it. I think that they let whoever let that information out in that brief, or what it was written, that the information that was written, I think they did this to basically prepare everybody for the overturning of Roe versus Wade. If you really think about it, because all everybody was doing was talking and just waiting until the final decision was made. Nobody made a move, because I'm gonna be honest, no one thought it was gonna be overturned. Some people may have, but until you heard it, there really wasn't any reaction other than just talking amongst yourselves. So I think that was done on purpose. And again, I'm gonna fall back on, this is not about saving the Black community. Because I think I told y'all about Kermit Gosnell. He practiced doing abortions for over 30 years in West Philadelphia. He went to jail in 2013 because he killed a woman, and all the women that he served were either immigrants or women of color. And this was in West Philly, which is a majority Black city, basically. When they came into his facility, they had baby parts all over the place, in the freezer, in the garbage cans. None of his personnel was trained. They had, his assistants had no training whatsoever. Basically, he gave them a book to read. Some of them were performing abortions. You had whole babies in refrigerators. So, like I said, in terms of this being about saving the Black community, no, this is not about saving us. Because if it was about changing things for the better, change would have started a long time ago, and it's still not happening now. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Greer. I've got, so D and then B and then Glenn, Jean, Nancy, and Cheryl, and I'm gonna stop the list after Cheryl, and then anybody who hasn't spoken can do their 2 minutes in the wrap up so that we can hopefully end relatively on time. So D, you are next.
Well, I have another side of this.
Oh, sorry, it's D, and then
D, okay.
D, and then B, and then Glenn, Jean, Nancy, and Cheryl. Sorry. Okay, D.
I have a question. During all of this discussion and, you know, abortions, yes or no, during circumstances, yes or no. What about the morning after pill? Is that hooked into any of this legislation? Because if we can hang on to that, that will help. But I don't know, you know? And my other thought is, before abortions were legal, what were they called? They were called DNCs. Anybody remember those? Yeah, yeah. And so there's still loopholes that can be used. And, you know, I live in California, and if there's a loophole, we'll find it, you know, because we will, you know, but that's just what I was thinking. And someone else mentioned the Supreme Court being the highest law of the land. I have always considered the Supreme Court the final say-so until lately, when they start doing the things they're doing now. And the Supreme Court really isn't that supreme anymore. You know, when they're putting a woman in there who is full of dogma, who is lying, that had 2 years of experience, that's not a Supreme Court judge. Okay, sorry, can't do it. And they need to fix that, but that's not going to happen in our lifetime, because at this point, there is no term limit for a Supreme Court judge. They pretty much have to die in office. And so it's going to take a lot of time to straighten the Supreme Court back out and make it supreme again, because it's a mess right now.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Next is B. Beatrice.
Yeah,
B.
The question that a woman herself needs to ask, do I have the resources, emotional, financial, to support another child? And that's a question I ask me. You don't have the right to ask me that. You don't have a right to make that decision for me. And that's what somebody is doing who says it's forced birth. Most women who have abortions are already parenting. That's what abortion clinic people will tell you. They already have children. And for whatever reasons, and we don't need to get into that because that's their business, if their birth control didn't work or whatever. But you have a right to have your opinion about when life begins and what you think people should do, but not where it affects my life. That's my body. And I cannot say it any more clearly, like Nancy said, my body, my choice. And so when you look at the number of African-American women, if those statistics are accurate in terms of have abortions as opposed to other women, think about poverty. Think about women who know that they cannot support a child. And what would be the reason that you would make such a choice if you know that you cannot provide the emotional and financial security for a child? Ectopic pregnancies. There's so much in this that is so disturbing. And it is the tragedy that a medical procedure has been removed from the total reproductive and gynecological procedures that should be involved at abortion. And it was a reason, it was a political reason. Republicans needed something years ago in the 70s, they needed something to galvanize their people to raise money. And they struck up with this pro-life, which has nothing, they don't vote for anything that supports life. Extending the child credit, no. Did they? No. Extending the child, the healthcare, as I was saying, anything that supports life, continues a life of value. There are people in some parties are completely against. So don't tell me you're pro-life. That's a bunch of crap. You're not fooling anybody. And that court is just tragic. It is absolutely tragic that these people sat up there when they were being gotten on the Supreme Court and said, stare decisis, we will not touch the standard law. We will not touch it. They were lying. It is very disturbing, and I feel my heart breaks for the young women who are childbearing age who cannot make decisions about their future. Am I going to be able to go to school? Will I be able to work? Will I be able to do that? It is tragic.
Thank you, Beatrice. Next, I have Glenn. Glenn, you there?
First of all, people be saying all these, who's supposed to be Christians, saying that, that a person figure they can't support their children if they have another child. Well, I was born in a time when there were no birth controls. And they had women who had 5 children. They had women who had, in my house, it was 9 children and 1 on the outside. And in my block, they had women that had 12 children. And all those children grew up to be able to stand on their own. They didn't starve. They weren't malnutrition. They all went to school. But see, it's just for the people who call themselves religious and lost faith. They don't believe, they don't even put God in the equation. What the help that they can get from God, who's supposed to believe in this. Now, I can understand those who don't believe, but I don't understand somebody who say they believe in God and then take God out the equation on the help that you can receive from God. And that's what the whole thing is about. You got more people today who say they have faith and don't believe in the principles of their own religion. That's it.
Thank you, Glenn. Next, we have Jean.
Well,
you're muted.
Okay. Yeah.
Now you're
another issue. The ACLU has put out a notice with respect to using the internet, and they said that the police are already well versed in terms of how to access our emails and things that we do. And so they, as an example, they showed that in 2017, an online search for abortion medication was used to charge a woman with second-degree murder. In 2015, a woman's text messages about ordering abortion medication contributed to her conviction. So they have a number of steps that they suggest people do in order to preserve their privacy. In fact, if they're seeking aid with respect to getting the medical, the abortion medication. So, This is just trampling on all our rights. There's just no question about it. We could debate from now until kingdom come whether abortion's right or wrong, but the bottom line is this is what we're stuck with now. We need to go about and try protecting ourselves, and we need to try and make sure that our medical treatment as women is where it should be. I'm sorry. My son saw women, pro-life women, marching and protesting, and they were being interviewed as to how many had adopted children, and no one did. You know, as he said, I could respect them if they adopted children, you know, but no, one woman said, oh no, I already have 2 of my own, you know, so it's falseness. They're not pro-life. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Jean. Nothing to apologize for. Nancy, you're next. Cheryl will be after her, and then we'll go into the wrap up.
I just want to expound more on exactly what Jean said and exactly what Beatrice said, that there are no provisions being made after birth of these children. You are not increasing the minimum wage. You do not provide medical aid, do not provide educational aid, you're not expanding childcare. I would think that one of the first things that you do to go along with these ridiculous laws is to expand childcare. You need 24-hour childcare centers. Most women who work, and they work in low-paying jobs, work extended hours. You need childcare, and you have no provisions for childcare. So there are so many things that these laws are going to, and as far as are going to complicate family dynamics even further. But also, they were talking about Roe versus Wade, because all these trigger laws were standing by, waiting for Roe versus Wade. So they knew it was in the works. They knew it was coming down the pipe. This has been going on for years. They have been trying to overturn Roe v. Wade. And it is, as Stanton said, about control. It's all about control. My 17-year-old grandson is reading Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale. And he said, at first, I would not have thought much about this until the overturn of Roe v. Wade. You remember the little boy that used to sit in the Erace meetings? He is now 17 years old and is very aware of current events going on. And we had a discussion about Roe v. Wade and The Handmaid's Tale. And he's like, that how this is following The Handmaid's Tale. That's scary. And if for anyone who hasn't watched it, you should watch it, because it is very scary. I'm not saying enough.
Tell him to read Octavia Butler too.
Octavia Butler? What?
Yeah. Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. He could start there and then.
Okay. Octavia Butler.
Yep, she's African-American science fiction woman writer. Cheryl, you are next and final.
So I'd like everybody just to take a minute and just touch in on how we all feel, and just everybody have a tangible moment of feeling how you feel right now. Maybe we all are. Benjamin Franklin wrote a book in the 1700s advising people on healthcare at home. And one of the chapters, or part of it, was on how to do abortions. Midwives were outlawed in the United States in 1847 when the medical practice, the AMA, became a male-dominated organization. And then in 1880, total restriction of abortion came of age. I am also pro-life, pro-choice, which is a weird place to be. My birth control failed me. It was prescribed. My personal story will not be told here. I cannot have children because of abortion, legal abortion. So I have some very hard feelings, so this is a very tough conversation for me. This is none of my business how you personally feel about abortion. It's none of my business. It's not the state's or any government's business how I feel or how you feel. It's a personal issue. What does pro-choice, pro-life mean? It's a woman's choice and her doctor's choice. A woman chooses it, and the doctor chooses to do it. It's a private matter. If you raise your children and you have certain beliefs, do you want them to die because they don't have the same beliefs as you? We need to have legal, clean, fair spaces with lots of check-ins, because if they checked in with me, like Nancy talked about, I probably would still be able to have children, but nobody did any follow-up. I think contraceptives should be readily available for everyone. And the reason I ask you all to just check in on how you feel, this is an extremely divisive subject that has been chosen. I don't think it's been chosen because of high moral issues. I think it's been chosen to divide us more. And then there's a lot more to it. I could go on and on. I believe many of the things everyone said about it. I just think that there's a lot to it. And it's been an interesting conversation. But I think all of us just seeing how flared we are is really an important part of checking in here, because everyone has a right to their opinions.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, next. So here's who I have on my list of people who have not spoken, and correct me if I'm wrong. I've got Michelle, Lynetta, Marion, Francie, Marva, and Pedro. Anybody I missed who didn't speak during the discussion? Okay, so Michelle, would you like to take 2 minutes?
I really don't have much to add. I agree with a lot of the people here, and it's a very divisive subject. And to me, as I think back on a lot of things that I've previously thought differently on and reflected on why I've thought the way I've thought and now think differently, a lot of times it goes back to who is controlling the narrative, and I always go back to that one now. And who's always been controlling the narrative on this has been white men. So that's just my thought. Everything is being controlled by white men in this situation, and I feel very hopeless in that regard, because that's who's in control right now. Other than just trying to appeal to the women in this society, that we all come together, and I don't know when that's going to happen, because we are divided amongst ourselves even. But that's my only hope in this regard. As I said last week, I'm just very scared about what's coming down the pike with the Supreme Court. So that's all I've got to say at this point. Thank you so much to everybody. I hope we have a good weekend.
Thank you, Michelle. Next is Lynetta.
Yes, I work with incest survivors and domestic violence survivors, and I just can't. These laws have been written without consulting people that do this kind of work, and also medical people. This little 10-year-old little girl, who's looking at a 10-year-old girl being pregnant? 15, and that would be the time, was it 15 weeks, everybody? 15?
She was 6.
6, okay, 6 weeks. That might be the time that somebody might tell, the little girl might tell somebody. It may not even be that time. And then her time to get an abortion was gone. And I just think that these politicians need to look at what they're doing. All situations don't sit in a little box. And you also talking about girls, children. This is not just a woman's issue. This is a little girl's issue also. Then I agree with everybody who said that this is bigger than abortion. this is a divide and conquer situation. And the Supreme Court is just running, they have their agenda. And part of it is divide and conquer. I think the Supreme Court needs to be expanded, and I think they need to be term limited. Also, this is, like I said, is bigger than just abortion. I think all of our rights, and I don't think that this is I think that was Larry that said that it was using margin, and I agree, correct me if I'm wrong, using Black people, Black women as an excuse. I don't know if I got it right or not, but this has all to do with white supremacists. And I think they have infected the medical field. That's why the numbers from Black women are so high, not surviving childbirth. And it's something that we need to look at. And I'll challenge everybody on that's a member of Erace, please pay attention, be engaged, because this is bigger than just abortion. Abortion is what they're starting with, and they're trying to divide and conquer people, but this is bigger than abortion. Is my time up?
It's over. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Marion? You're unmuted. You're fine. Oh, nope, you were.
It's okay. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble today. I sat here and I'm a little bit calmer now, because as we were discussing, as each person was discussing or making his or her remark, I felt myself becoming kind of panic stricken. I think I shared with you all, I'm the mother of 3 children, grown women and a grown woman and 2 grown men now. That my 3rd child, I love with all my heart. There are no words I could express to you all to let you know how much I love this child. But I almost lost my life giving birth to him. My mother and my husband came into the room in the maternity ward. I woke up and they were standing on either side of the bed with looks of terror on their face. The doctor came in shortly and took my hand and said, "Mr. Gord, we were kind of worried about you in there." He said, "You really went through something." My blood pressure went off the chart, and it was touch and go for a while. And for people, especially men, since there's only male and female in our species, have no idea how dangerous it can be to give birth to a human being. And to the person who said that people had 12 children or 5 or 6 children, you have no idea what that woman went through. Just because these 12 people are walking around living, talking, breathing, working, whatever, you don't know what that woman went through giving birth to those 12 children. I think this was a huge mistake on the part of the Supreme Court, and I'm dreading what's going to be next. So anyone who thinks that being pregnant and giving birth is no big deal, there aren't enough synonyms in the English language to describe. It's more than a huge, colossal, enormous, big, gigantic deal. You can lose your life, the baby can die, you can die. It is a serious, serious matter when a woman is about to give birth and does give birth. And it's a miracle that the human population on the planet Earth is as large as it is, because no one can just say, "Oh, it's no big deal. You carry the baby for 9 months and you deliver the baby." It is a colossal deal.
Marion, your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Francie.
Well, I don't have anything of substance to add to what everyone has said. But I think that life may begin at conception, but I question whether a human being begins at conception. And that, for me, that's the crux of it. I did look online a few weeks ago about when life begins in the Christian sense, and there was someone who had written from the Methodist viewpoint and said the only thing in the Bible that they found talked about God breathing life into his creation of Adam from dust. And at that point, Adam became a human. And I kind of like that explanation that not until you take your breath is the soul there. But I know a lot of other people who come from religious backgrounds have different viewpoints, but I did find that one interesting. And for all you women who had difficult births or difficult abortions, my hat's off to all of you. My heart's with you. That's it.
Thank you, Francie. Marva.
I've enjoyed everyone's input. It was a discussion that was informative. My opinion is that everyone is entitled to make their own decision. And religion can play a part in your decision making, and lifestyle, and your health. I make decisions about my body. I'm not in childbearing age. And if I were, this decision I was making, it will affect my family, my health, and my lifestyle, and especially my financial status and the environment. All these things should be considered when making a life choice decision. And thank you for your input. Thank you.
Thank you, Marva. And finally, on the 2-minute list is Pedro. Excuse me.
Yeah, what a very provocative discussion. Real quickly, since I have a lot of things I kind of jotted down, but first I just wanted to thank Cheryl and others that have expressed what it is to be a woman and to on issues surrounding pregnancy. You know, I kind of really learned in my heart a little bit today that the profound transformation that the human body endures during pregnancy is something that only a woman can know. At the same time, I also liked what Cheryl said about the highly divisive issue, that this is not about primarily a concern for women or for life. I think, in a sense, it's a distraction from other forms of oppression, right? Which I think are so connected to kind of this wealth inequality kind of thing. It's kind of like a shiny coin where I'm distracted from some of these other issues. Not to minimize the issue, please don't get me wrong, but I had the honor of having a guy on the other night, Dr. James Kahn. He's an emeritus professor of health policy at the University of California at San Francisco and a leading researcher in the cost and effectiveness of health intervention programs. He was part of a group of authors that put out an article in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that found that between the beginning of the pandemic until mid-March of 2022, universal health care, that means Medicare for all, could have saved more than 338,000 lives from COVID in the United States alone. And that we are, you know, miserable healthcare system. That's main issue is profiteering and such. So I don't know, I just for some reason thought those were important things to bring into the discussion, that we live in a country that has the worst outcomes, yet we're the wealthiest nation in the world. So there's something fundamentally wrong that we are distracted from. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you spell that doctor's last name?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to move to the 1 minute wrap up, people. So that will be Lynn to start.
So many excellent comments. I hate to add any more because they won't be excellent. My two thoughts that I just had on my mind were to D, these lawmakers are trying to find these loopholes and smash them. Look at Texas. They're empowering neighbors to denounce neighbors, family members, relatives, cousins to denounce family members. There's not a lot of room for loopholes. And it seems like everything I know I learned on NPR, but I heard some doctors saying, we are going to be afraid to perform necessary medical procedures for fear of being charged with abortion. And the example they gave was women whose water breaks prematurely. They need to have the fetus removed, but they cannot do that under the new Texas law without being charged with abortion. They have to wait until the fetus dies, the woman gets sick, has a fever, and is in danger of dying. So that's another medical impact that Jean was talking about. Thank everyone for your good.
Thank you, Lynn. Stanton?
To my brethren out there who don't believe in a woman's right to choose, I would suggest two things. One, stop impregnating women, or two, get a vasectomy. And on a personal note, Nancy, I hope you didn't take what I said to minimize your medical experience. That wasn't my intent. And if I did, I apologize. I think it came out sounding wrong somehow. So I just wanted to correct the record for you.
Thank you, Stanton. Next is Dee Dee.
I've enjoyed this discussion. There are a lot of different polls in this group, and I applaud the respect that each has for others' opinions. On a honest note, when Roe was overturned, there were in my Facebook page, a lot of my gay friends were posting things like, buckle up, we're next. And that's true. And that's very scary because same-sex marriage is a choice and it affects no one else. It's their business and leave it alone. And so the fact that they may try to affect that also is very, very scary to me, and it's very angry to me. And I'm done.
Thank you, Dee Dee. Nancy?
Very provocative topic. I'm sure we're not done with it. And there are so many different avenues that we can go down and continue discussing this. But I just, want to once again emphasize, I am pro-choice. All right. It does not mean because I'm pro-choice that I'm not pro-life. Okay. I do believe that at a certain point where the fetus is viable outside of the woman's body, that abortion stops there. Okay, but that's my personal belief. And there are so many personal beliefs that on this topic that everyone has their own opinion about what's right and what's wrong. I can only speak from my experience. But so I'm saying that, yes, I am pro-choice, but to an extent, I am pro-life.
Thank you, Nancy. Next is Jean.
Am I on now?
You are.
Okay, well, I agree with Nancy. I'm pro-choice and pro-life as well. Life begins whenever and it ends when we leave here. I watch a show periodically called A Seat at the Table. It runs out of Atlanta. And I think it's Monica Pearson who used to be, it's three Black women from three different walks of life. And they were discussing the problems with maternity amongst Black women and how it's just not as taken as seriously. Like there's this myth that Black women are stronger than everybody, that for some reason can withstand a lot of things. There was a man there who lost his wife after giving birth. She was bleeding. He kept telling the doctors, they didn't act quickly. She died. You know, what we need to do is we need to gather together. We need to take care of ourselves and our women. And we need to stand together to make sure that we get better maternity care and better health care, period. And I just, you know, can't stress enough. We need to get out and vote and get some of these people out of office that are, you know, make the one state is Texas or Florida, you know, making it a crime to transport, to go across state lines to come someplace to get an abortion. And speaking of which, Maryland.
Sorry, Jean, you've overgone a minute. Sorry.
Can I just say one last thing?
Yes.
Anybody who needs to come to Maryland, I have an extra bed. I'll be glad to put somebody up. If they shouldn't be alone.
If they need to visit Maryland for any reason.
Yes, for any reason, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, B, you are next.
Change of terms is important. Words have power. These people are forced birth people. They are anti-abortion people. They are not pro-life. They are involved with control and power. Childbirth is more dangerous and risky than abortion. And I think it is my right to make choices about my health care, my reproductive care, my health care, and your right to make your choice. Don't put your choice on me, whatever your religion or whatever it is or whatever reasons. And finally, good discussion, difficult topic. Anything that has to do with human beings is difficult, but the Alito did the worst thing in the world, giving this back to states by his saying, give it to the states, let the states make it. What a confusing mess. What a mess. Thanks for a good conversation. Great topic.
Thank you, B. Next is Marla.
Yep, great discussion. I just kind of wanted to go back to the article a little bit regarding how Black folks are disproportionately affected by this. And one thing we didn't touch on is how really violent kind of the white female response was with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and the screaming and yelling and, you know, throwing up of arms and saying it's suddenly so bad. Things are really getting bad now, and how horrifically violent that was to say when things have been so bad for Black folks, for Black women. So just something that I've been pondering more, my response to things, and also kind of regulating that. And then how I do think, even though we've had the overturn, that white women who are resourced are always going to have access to safe abortion. They will find a way. And that to me is the most terrifying part of all of this for Black birthing folks who need access. So that's it. Thanks for a great discussion.
Thank you, Marla. Next is Glenn.
Well, as always, y'all get very dramatic, as though that women are dying from childbirth at a higher rate than any other reason in the United States. It is not even the 100th cause of death in the United States. Diabetes kills over 1.5 million people a year. Heart disease, and Alzheimer's, liver disease. But y'all making it look like women, like it's over 1 million women dying from childbirth. Well, how risky it is. I almost died just going in for a simple procedure. They give me an overdose on the drug to put me to sleep. So anytime you go on the operating table, you under risk that you could die. So I mean, stop making it look like childbirth is the #1 death in America. Goodbye.
Next is Greer.
Well, this is one aspect we really didn't talk about. No one's talking about the father's financial responsibility to the child once it's born here. No one is saying about that. The babies aren't created by themselves. You have a lot of mothers out here who have fathers of children who are not helping them. Is the government going to step in and help them take care of these kids financially with a decent amount of money? What it really takes to take care of a child? And let's be real, the justices up there sitting like they're angelic angels. But at the end of the day, if it's their kid and something happens and they don't want their lives be ruined, they're going to take our tax dollars and pay out of pocket to get them a backdoor abortion if they have to. Because they, God forbid, should any of their kids have a kid out of wedlock, it looks bad, it could ruin their lives. That's it.
Thank you, Greer. Stop the timer. So I have a few things I want to say, and I'll try to wrap this up quickly so then we can do the announcements and move on. A lot. First of all, I thought people were not pretty emotional during this. They just related facts and personal experiences that actually happened to them, mainly as women. I didn't hear a lot of emotion except from somebody who is no longer on the screen. I want to say that pregnant people are very vulnerable during the time that they're carrying. It is a time where a male partner specifically, may choose to harm or even kill them to avoid the consequences of his having sex and potentially becoming a father, and he does not want. That was brought up, the consequences of sex. It seems like those are always placed on women's shoulders and not on the shoulders of the sperm donor. I've heard some stories from women who work at abortion providing facilities who say that sometimes a woman who's been protesting will come in to get an abortion and cuss them the whole time that she is getting an abortion she chose to get because they're doing wrong, but she's getting the service that she most of the time is outside protesting. And I don't need to say that those are white women. I do think that it's not just white men who are driving this this bus to try to derail the rights of many parts of our population. It's also those people who support them, and that's white women, that's Black men, and that's some Black women. But I would say fewer Black women than anybody else. And because white women want proximity to white male power, and so do some Black men. So that's going on. The issue of viability as being the time when abortion could be considered only in terms of the life of the mother or due to some problems with the fetus. I think viability is a huge thing, because if what's growing inside you can't live without you, it's not life. You know, I've got eggs in my refrigerator. I don't call them chickens. You know, And it's first of all, there's always been forms of birth control. It wasn't the pill that suddenly gave women access to oral birth control. People have used herbs. Women have given themselves abortions with either herbs or other ways. And I heard somewhere recently talk of slave women who, often being raped and impregnated to make more slaves by their owners, aborting their children to keep them from being in slavery. I have to say, I don't believe that there are just two genders in our species. I believe there's more than two, and trans men can also be pregnant, and non-binary people can also be pregnant. So I'm trying to get away from just saying women, although that's probably outside the scope of most of these white men in government and the white people and Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court, speaking of wanting proximity to power, white power. Said that. So I wish Larry was still here, because I had questions about that article he quoted where he said there were, in 2021, I guess just in Louisiana, I have to look for this article, 1,000 white women got abortions, 4,000 Black women. I have questions. Like, there's a lot of, I've seen it working in a heart failure situation, getting women who are pregnant or have just given birth having issues. And I question how many of those abortions that article quoted were medically needed, because I think people who come at this from a more moralistic, religious perspective, bring up the idea that somehow a woman got pregnant in some illicit way in their minds, and then went and tried to hide their sin by having an abortion. And that is not often the case. And, especially if it's an abortion that happens in the third trimester, because those women planned to have their babies. And I said that. So, as I said in the beginning, well, I'll say this. Bye, Cheryl. I am no longer ovulating. And hallelujah for that. And I am not going to have to face the decision, and I have never had to face the decision to choose to have an abortion or not. And the entire time where I was reproductively active, Roe was in place. So I never faced a situation where I didn't have that access. So my concern in this topic is that it is just the beginning of a bigger loss of rights for everyone in this country. And it will trickle down from the most vulnerable to the people in power. And then people will get upset, but it's going to take a while. And I do think the Supreme Court needs term limits and to be more people. And the ones who lied under oath during their hearings should be impeached. We have two people who gave sexual assault, who were sexual assaulters on the Supreme Court, two men. And they, this whole thing with this 10-year-old girl in Ohio, I'm astounded. Like, they act like, well, if she was pregnant by rape, that's the only way a 10-year-old is pregnant. She's not the age of consent. If a 10-year-old is pregnant, she was raped. So, and her little body her hips aren't wide enough. She doesn't have the physical ability to carry a baby for 9 months and then give birth to it. And if you think giving birth vaginally is dangerous, imagine getting the major surgery of a C-section, where they cut you all the way into your organs and move them and take a baby out and then sew you back up, and the nerve damage that has to heal from that. So yeah, women and other birthing people are at risk. And the rest of the people who don't feel that this is affecting them need to wake up and look at the trickle down consequences of all of this. Thank you all for your comments. I'm going to stop the recording.